Get started with the podcast. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the You Know Ball podcast. I am your host, Tro Bro Dude, and back on the podcast, the fan favorite, the worst name on Twitter. We have Matt, aka Panasonic, whatever your name is. I refuse to acknowledge it. What's going on, Matt?
I'm not changing it now, just because now it's just worth it. Every time you get so mad, you have to come on. I'm gonna make it longer and I'm gonna make it dumber.
I hate it. I hate it so much. Every time that I have to tag you in a post, I'm like, I despise this Twitter name, and I hate that you are continuing with this bit. But
it's like a 5-year bit at this point. I can't undo it.
No, I appreciate the dedication to the bit, but we have to talk about what everyone came here for, which is our guy, Mr. Dr. Rivers on Twitter. Absolutely popping up. I wake up on Sunday morning and I check Twitter and I have a DM from someone that I don't know at all. And it's Walter White screaming from the car, the one scene in Breaking Bad. And it just says in all caps, Trill, wake up, wake up. And I'm like, who is this person? And why did you send this to me at 1 a.m.? Like, what the fuck's going on? So I check the feed and, friend of the show, Corver, aka May from Twitter, tweets. I actually reached out to him and I had to ask him some questions. I had to pick his brain on this because he tweets at around midnight. Go look at Doc Rivers' Twitter likes, which clearly he did not know were public. He said he was at the bar. Corver was at the bar.
Say real quick?
Yes.
Waking up the next morning after this, having missed it, had to feel like, someone who like slept through when Hawaii got all those nuclear missile warnings, and just like waking up next. Oh, what happened? Oh, wow, really? Oh man.
The worst part about it is that I was actually up at midnight, way past midnight, because there were a bunch of drunk kids in my neighborhood screaming outside, and I didn't check Twitter because I had work the next morning, and I didn't want to look at the screen and have my eyes be poisoned by everything that I see on there. But I miss one of the greatest Twitter moments due to the fact that this happened. And yes, it did feel very similar to waking up and missing a nuclear missile text that didn't actually happen. It's a great way to put it. Yeah. So I reached out to him and I said, how did you find out about this? So he was out at the bar and his buddy actually got a text and said, yo, go look at Dr. Of course, Sixers fans, like most fan bases, would not be like at midnight searching on the likes of the coach for their team.
Okay, but by the way, for anyone who's somehow listening to this pod blind, you never actually described what we're talking about here.
Well, I mean, that Doc Rivers liked a bunch of porn and didn't know that his likes were public. I feel like if you're listening,
there you go. Now we've established it.
The episode name is Doc Rivers Horny on Main, so I'm assuming that people know.
I mean, the thing is, like you say, like, oh, most people aren't assuming that, like, people are going to search the likes at midnight, but those were there for weeks. It looked like they were just sitting there, like an unexploded landmine, just waiting for someone to accidentally trip it, like years after the war. And we got there.
Yeah, eventually we did get there.
Or actually, if you believe the official story, then actually someone just hacked it that night and somehow.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, like all those post-dated.
If you want people to believe that his account was actually hacked, you gotta like tweet some, like you gotta at least do the Offset thing when Offset got pretended like he got hacked and he just tweeted balls in my face, I'm gay, and all the stuff that like someone that would hack your account would say. At least he put the effort forward, or like do the Jeannie Buss thing where like when Jeannie Buss got hacked. And she actually did get hacked, and like you're just like, hey, I have PS5s, by the way, if you want to DM me.
It's so easy now. You just have to tweet a fake crypto link, and we'll all buy it.
Exactly. Although, to be fair, with the Sixers,
Yeah, no, like if you can just tweet that you have a new partnership with like Color Star or whatever the hell it was, and I'll be like, yeah, that makes more sense for it to be hacked than whatever the truth was.
Well, that's the best part about this is it's like the seventh weirdest thing. And by the way, it's not even weird. Like,
No, I want to say
it's
before we
normal.
talk about it, we need to firmly establish that like he did nothing wrong. It's fine.
No,
to be
of course.
Totally it's just deeply funny, and we all want Doc fired anyway. So I will whip this into a moral panic if I have to. But it's
Matt's going back to his
wrong.
Catholic school roots.
Yeah, the Immaculate Heart of Mary tells me that unfortunately we can no longer trust Doc Rivers to be a leader of this squad.
Unfortunately, Doc Rivers' behavior is destroying families across the country, and we need to take this very seriously, actually.
In the olden days of yore and our ancestral forefathers, they had a process called stoning, and I'm not saying we have to escalate from there, but I'm saying there's precedent.
Look, we need to hold Doc Rivers accountable for trying to destroy the institution of the American family, and at the very least, relieve him of his duties and make anyone else head coach of the Sixers.
If the National Basketball Association has shown anything in the past week, is that they hold their coaches, owners, all members of the organization to the highest moral standard.
Clearly.
That logo is more than just like, Jerry West back in 1956 or whatever. It's an assurance that the NBA, it has the moral high ground in all matters. And every single one of those, I lost track of it.
They will do right by, the American people, no matter what your race is or your gender or your background, whatever it is, they will protect you, is what you're trying to say here. And, obviously Doc Rivers should be fired. Tell the general.
I mean, the worst thing is that if he had just unliked them at midnight and just like never brought it up, I think it would just like filtered out. But it's the fact that he came out and like made this whole, oh yeah, I got hacked, it's a hell of a thing story. Like, no, you didn't. We know you didn't.
I mean, that Keith is going to bring it up at training camp, right? Like Keith Pompey is going to be like, and
he's waited all his life to be able to pull this kind of card.
And I just want to say that, like you said, if he came out and just like unliked it and was like, yeah, like I was horny online, I would respect that 100%. He did nothing wrong. It's kind of like your Ben Simmons thing when Ben Simmons was taking money from Josh Harris, and you were like, this is the first cool thing he's done. Yeah.
It was the only. Oh wow, the Cardinals won.
Wow! Congratulations!
Fumble recovery.
65-yard fumble recovery for touchdown.
That's just for the live viewers. That won't make it to the live pod. To the
Sorry, I have porn on my mind. We're talking about Doc Rivers' Twitter likes.
What else is new?
Well, that's the thing. That was the whole thing about this, is that like everyone watches porn. Why do we have to pretend like we don't because Doc Rivers doesn't know how to use technology?
I think that the real thing is it was like just a failed attempt to bond with James Harden. Just like him being like, look, me too. It's just he doesn't know how it works.
Part of me felt like I didn't believe that Doc Rivers was a guy that actually scrolled on Twitter, because I feel like he's almost too normal to just be like scroll, like doing the same thing that we do, and we're like the worst people alive. and it's hard to believe that someone that like is successful and like coaches in the NBA could do the same thing that we do. But the fact that he liked it and didn't realize that his likes were public.
He does coach in the NBA. We don't have to say is successful. He coaches in the NBA. I'm not adding success to that.
Yeah, success is relative here, I guess. I mean, he's at least scammed a bunch of billionaires to the point where they think he's successful. He's actually a brilliant market. Like, I've always said Doc should be a politician because he's so good at marketing himself and he's so good at lying that, like, I'm sure in a few weeks at training camp, everyone will believe whatever, not us, but like the people that are like covering the team or whoever, like your random fans will believe whatever crock of shit he comes up with if it's ever brought up in the press conference.
You know what the saddest part of it all for me is, though? If he had a better relationship with his son, maybe he would have taught him how to bookmark a tweet. And this all could have been avoided.
He would have... Yo, Dad, I've seen your likes. I've searched like he would search his own dad's likes on Twitter. Like, come on, Dad.
It's like, it's the mono equivalent of having to teach your parent to clear the browser history.
Exactly, Dad. Here's incognito mode, and you can search whatever you want. Thank you, Austin.
Just in case you ever need it. I don't know. In case there's a reason for that on the family desktop.
Yeah, I guess Doc's like my dad's age, so he doesn't know any of like my dad doesn't even know how to use the internet. Like, I'm surprised that he even knew how to like tweets. That was a surprise to me.
Yeah, he probably felt really proud when he figured how to like a tweet. That's why there's only like 17 of them.
Yeah, exactly.
An accomplishment for him.
He's like, I finally figured it out, and then it was once again not even the weirdest thing. Like, I tweeted about this and I said it was like not even the weirdest thing that a Sixers representative has done on Twitter in the past 5 years. This isn't even like in the top 12 funniest or weirdest or most outlandish things that have happened to the Sixers over the past decade. Like, if if this were the Nuggets head coach, it would be like a massive story and everyone would be like, oh my God. But because it's a Sixers coach, it's like, yeah, the weird shit happens there every few months and we just accept it and move on.
Who would be the funniest head coach to find liking a bunch of porn tweets on Twitter?
Well, he doesn't coach anymore, but Brad Stevens would have been a good one.
I was thinking that too. I was thinking it would be, and it would be weird, like real. It
would be like when Ted Cruz liked the tweet of the porn that just looked like his wife. I'm like, what? Like, you can have sex with your wife. Like, why are you like?
It was a little romantic. I hate to
in a way. I hate to give him. Yeah, you got to give him credit.
Brad Stevens would have like that kind of porn that you don't even you only really know it's porn because of the lighting. Like, it's so like weird and niche that it's just, you could potentially just watch it and not even ever pick up on it if it weren't for like the like music and like the little zoom ins at the right time.
Your computer just starts glitching out because you're just getting so many viruses while you're watching it. That kind of, that's the good stuff. It is really weird that everyone has to act like a few years ago. I remember this exact thing happened to Derek Gunn, the Eagles reporter, and most of these porn things, like they're pretty basic porn stuff that they're liking, and it's just funny to me because everyone is like, oh my God, this is insane, and it's like literally everyone, if you went through their history, they just didn't know it was public, but everyone would have something in there that we could just fucking make fun of them for.
If you're listening to this live, you should be furiously going through Trail's likes right now.
Oh, you can go through my likes. I'm first off, you don't think that I would have burners for weird porn things? Like, I've learned from Brian Colangelo. I've learned from the best.
I mean, okay, that's honestly though the funniest part of all this. Like, for any other team, I'd be a little bit like, okay, you're an old man. You got caught off. It was like, you got caught on the switch and you don't understand how it works. But like, if there's any team where every executive at this point should be fully aware of how Twitter works and how people can track everything you do on it down, it would have to, I mean, we literally like 4 or 5 years ago burnt the front office to the ground because of this.
It's true, yeah. Well, Daryl Morey himself was following a hot yoga pants Twitter account.
Again, nothing wrong. Nothing wrong
with it. But fine. It is funny that considering the team, you would think they would be hyper aware of these things.
You know what was actually the funniest part of that? I when I saw that, it shows not just Daryl Moore, but it shows everyone that you follow that was following it. And the two I followed that were following it were Daryl Moore and Howard Eskin. They were both following the Yoga Pantson account, and it was like finally they found common ground.
The dynamic duo of those two.
We can broker peace.
That's
the two of them in the room together with that account open on the laptop, and we will finally bring the analytics nerds and the
the old man real hoopers. Howard Eskin is just the old version of Ball Don't Stop, basically the old white version of Ball Don't Stop. He's just so I just want to say before we move on from this, I want to say no kink shaming, by the way. Whatever Doc watches on his free time, totally fine. Everything he posted was totally fine. Normal stuff. Find a new slant is what I'm trying to say.
This doesn't even rank in the top 500 reasons why I want Doc Rivers off the team. It's not even on the radar. This isn't, it's incredibly funny. It's very funny, but just in the he clearly has he knows less about how Twitter works than he knows how to do substitutions. It's very funny.
the best tweet that I saw was Doc took the tweets down took the likes down within 2 hours. It was the best adjustment that he's made in game in years. I have to give credit to myself on this one. This isn't a Riley Reid victory tour.
You don't get the credit. You don't get any credit for this. You missed it. You were hours late.
But everyone laughed and had a good time on Twitter, so that's all I care about.
If anything, this is Doc deserves. This is the most he brought Sixers Twitter together
ever
here in a positive way.
We all can agree on this one thing being extremely funny.
You should lean into it.
All right. So moving on. Also, shout out to Dan. Dan Bad Tweets. I think that's his handle. I know him.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But Dan tweeted, Sixers fans. We want dogs. Doc Rivers. Well, I've got Pogs. We appreciate it. We appreciate it.
We all had a good time. Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Doc Rivers, for bringing.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. Now I will say I'll feel a little bit bad when you get fired in the middle of the season. Not really though. That's gonna be awesome.
No, it's gonna be fun.
What's going on, guys? If you are watching this video on YouTube, please like and subscribe if you can. Put on your notifications for the channel. I would really, really appreciate it. In addition to that, if you want these episodes live, if you want to watch the live streams, if you want to get them early on your podcast feed, you can subscribe to the You Know Ball Patreon. The link is in the description. You will get a bunch of cool stuff. Depending on your tier, you'll get access to the Discord. You'll get merchandise early. You'll get discounts on that. You'll get a bunch of cool stuff. So please check that out. In addition to that, most importantly, you will get a second episode of You Know Ball every single week on your podcast feed. So please check that out if you can. And a quick shout out to our head hogs, the top tier on the You Know Ball Patreon. We have Anthony DePaul, Brandon from New Jersey, Jason Timperley, John Shields, RJ Spargo, Shrek, and T-Grum. So thank you so much to everyone who has signed up for the Patreon already. We've gotten almost 100 people, which is absolutely amazing. I did not expect that in less than a week. It's incredible. And especially shout out to the head hogs, the top tier, that keep this thing going. So if you can support, I would really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right. So actually, speaking of the rest of the episode that I did want to cover on here is we're going to talk about the Sixers upside. Before we get into that, by the way, Matt, recovering from the COVID booster right now, right?
Oh yeah. I've already bought $800 worth of Microsoft products today.
Nice. Good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Fantastic.
I just wanted to let people know that you're recovering from the COVID booster right now to show you there's no days off here at You Know Ball, and then I forced Matt to come in.
I don't know. I'm starting a union drive on Twitter. I'm trying to get people to support it. I do not get sick days. I do not get health care.
No sick days, no health care. He tweeted at me 2 hours before and said I didn't know that this was happening, and I said, "Well, get someone to cover your shift, or you better be there." And I'm glad that you made the effort to show up today.
It gave me.
We appreciate that.
I'm gonna, come in with my. You're a strike breaker. It's what you are. But happy. I'm still happy to be here for all the supporters.
Exactly.
But
I could. And by the way, if you're listening and you want to be a scab starting soon, I will need some replacement workers.
Oh yeah, you desperately need to replace my contributions to the pod. What would you do without me?
Once every 4 months.
Yeah, once every 4. In case you didn't know, I'm only here because Trill is like working out the kinks of this new live broadcasting with people.
Exactly.
I wanted to try it on one of the Twitter scoundrels that he's drug up, as opposed to like a real guest, which I get. I respect it.
You're just a guinea pig.
Yeah. Thank you, Liam.
Liam says the Discord is unionizing. Yeah, and I will break that union immediately. I can kick out anyone I want. I'm the only one who has banning privileges, which is the opposite of what it should be. So. And by the way, hey, if you want, this is why Drill shut it down the last time. That's not true. If you want to join the Discord, you can subscribe to the Patreon. The link is in the description. I have to plug that now on every episode, which makes me feel great. But you get bonus content too. You'll get an episode later this week. You will get all of that fun stuff. So let's move on to the Sixers upside.
Do I get a free Discord invitation if I am the content?
Yes, you can. You are allowed in the Discord if you want. I just didn't think you use Discord.
I don't. I have no idea how it works.
Exactly. I figured.
I tried using it last Sunday to get an NFL stream with the Eagles, and it was just like I have no idea what the hell's going on here. I'm 8 million years old.
Yeah,
and whatever the hell Be Real is, I have completely skipped out on that one.
Oh, Be Real is like it took me. I didn't sign up for TikTok until like 2 months ago. I'm very behind. I don't Be Real. I can't even wrap my brain around the concept of that social media, whatever it is.
It's fantastic. It's wonderful. It's just like I see it off in the distance and say they're having fun over there. Not for me. Enjoy.
Yeah, it sounds great. I saw on TikTok someone posted a
it's like Doc Rivers whenever he sees someone under the age of like 25 playing great basketball. He's like, that seems great for them. Not for me. Hope they have fun over there.
Yeah. Not personally. I actually don't hope they have fun at all. I hope their lives are ruined, and I hope they never play a game ever in the NBA. Anyway,
now I'll be over here on my phone looking through my Twitter likes for a few moments. Don't bother me.
If someone wants to explain someone wants to explain the concept of Be Real to me, feel free. I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I know how it works. How
does it work?
It's like at some point of the day, at a random time, your phone like alerts you that says you have to take a picture within like 2 minutes, 5 minutes. And,
what if you're fucking someone?
Well, that's the point. It's supposed to be whatever you're doing. This is like your life.
So that's why you're basically Be Real turns into Doc's Twitter likes real fast, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, exactly. Why would you jump straight to? Why would your first example be what if you're fucking? Why would that be?
What else are you going to think of? You're at a funeral?
You don't have to take a picture. You can decline. The only way you can you can only post once a day. And it's like whenever, it randomly tells you a time, and the idea is that it's just showing you. But of course now, you've got like these 17-year-olds who somehow are constantly on watch for it, and they'll just have like these elaborate displays ready for it to show off.
So yeah, that's what I was confused by, because in the TikTok I saw, there was a picture of a girl, and she was like, when your Be Real goes off and you're out to lunch with your ex, and she takes a picture of her ex and gets 100 DMs like, oh my God, blah, 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 texts, DMs, whatever. And then I'm like, well, why wouldn't you just not take the picture? Because I thought the concept was it just took a picture on your phone of whatever you're doing, just against your will, essentially. You give it consent to do that.
Well, maybe it does, but you can just keep the phone in your pocket then. You know, just get like
True.
the.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. You wouldn't have your phone out. Yeah.
in your head, is it just like the thing, like it just sprouts legs and like crawls its way out of your fucking pocket?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And Liam, I am not horny on Maine again. I'm just curious. I'm just a 32-year-old man trying to learn about young people's social media. And it took me forever with TikTok. Maybe I'll get there in 2025 with Be Real.
Again, that is exactly what Doc Rivers described it to, like the rest of the Sixers front office when they asked him what the hell he was doing.
I have no idea. I have no idea what this is. Like,
I'm just trying to understand how the young people are using the social media.
I'm trying to understand young players more. I can't empathize with them. I hate them so much. So, okay, so we're gonna talk about the Sixers upside now, and this is I have a checklist of things that have to happen for the Sixers to reach their ceiling this year. So, and then at the end, I'll say what I think their ceiling is.
Okay, I was about to ask, like, what are we calling a ceiling? But we'll see at the end.
So, how far? How will they be as a regular season team? How will they be in the playoffs? Like those kind of things. And if these things happen, can they win a title? Basically,
I'm not prepared for this at all. But Trill seems very prepared. So
yes, I'm very prepared. I have many things here, and then we will riff on them once I bring them up. I host the podcast. I come prepared, Matt. So, as we just had a 5-minute tangent about a social media thing that I don't know anything about.
A social media app that you're not on and can't get traction.
My first curiosity was, what if you're fucking?
I mean, that's what Doc said when he did his first Twitter search, and he got great results from it.
All right, we're moving on from the Doc thing. We'll bring it up later. Again,
we're never moving on from the Doc thing. It's going to come up all throughout the season.
100%. It will be forever from now. Okay, so the Sixers upside, the first major thing that I think needs to happen, and this is an obvious one, is healthy James Harden. So I guess my question to you is, do you believe any of the stuff, all the propaganda that Harden is posting on social media, or is this Ben Simmons 2.0 where you think he's going to come back and everything that it looks like he's working on, changing his game a little bit, throwing cakes in the ocean so that so that he's not overweight, I guess was the implication there.
A bit on the nose. That one was a bit on the nose. It went a little too hard on that. It's a two-part answer because the answer is yes, I do believe it. But I am an insane person who has swallowed so much Sixers propaganda without question, wholesale. I have drank the Kool-Aid for this team time and time again. And before anybody says that, I know it was actually Flavor Aid, but the expression is the expression. But like, I have drank this Kool-Aid so many times. I just want to believe. And I want it to be true. And so, yes, we are going to have fully healthy James Harden. Like, straight back. Not Houston James, but like closer to that.
He's never coming back. Yeah, okay, so...
I do think it's true because I think he didn't really have a chance in Brooklyn. He kind of got forced in that one playoff series to kind of just like play hurt the entire time.
Yeah.
And then everything that happened last year just wasn't normal in Brooklyn. I think this is the first time he's had like a full normal rehab off season. And so I think he is going to come back healthier than he has been. I don't know how much that is.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's going to be, but I think he's going to be. I mean, again, I just want it to be true, so I can't tell you.
So going back to what you said before, like we always get tricked into like talking ourselves back into the Sixers. I will say last offseason was probably like, if you go back and you listen to my podcast, because of the Ben Simmons thing, it was probably the first offseason that I had in a while where I was just like, I don't believe in this team at all because their second best player is not playing. So like, what do you even do? This offseason feels to me It feels so like there have been a few off seasons where I've been optimistic heading into the season.
Well, I was just saying. Okay, keep going. Finish.
I was just gonna say, like, what offseason would you compare this to? Like, leading into this, is this 17-18? Because, like, if you talk about recent ones, is this 17-18? Is this 18-19, 19-20? Like, what year is it heading into? Did you feel similar to the way that you feel now? And I feel like the only one we can say is 19-20, but I feel a lot better about this team, and I didn't have to talk myself into them quite as much as I did with that Al Horford iteration of the Sixers.
I was, oh God, I remember Z and I talked ourselves so much into Al Horford, being like, it makes sense actually if you think about it, and like it immediately was a disaster. But like, I don't think we really have context for this season, because I was just saying the other day, this is the most normal offseason the Sixers have had in years, really.
Ever.
Yeah, like I honestly think, at least in the Embiid era, this is the most normal. Like, we are walking into the next season with roughly the same roster that we walked out of last season with a couple key improvements. But like, I'm saying
big ones. I would say big ones for role player wise.
Big ones, but like that's the thing. Like the fundamentals of the team, like you still have Embiid, you still have Harden, you still have guys like Tobias, you know. But like the starting five has been tweaked, but like there's no like it's not like Ben Simmons isn't here anymore, or now it's like, you know, you have to incorporate Al Horford, or like, hey, we have a first overall pick and he doesn't really seem to remember how to shoot anymore, but like I'm sure that will work itself out in the first couple of weeks.
Yeah,
like it's just it's like the most normal. Like the team is just the same but better.
Yes,
like
that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
They on all the improvements that they made make sense. Like I can look at them and it's a very clear, okay, well, we just added guys who are good at basketball in the areas that we needed, and so the team will be more fun. So I don't have to talk myself into Al Horford,
exactly,
the power forward.
If you look back at 17-18, you have the full. Let's just say 17-18 is where it starts, because that's when Embiid started really playing a lot of games. That's when Ben was here. That was the beginning of whatever this core was. So you have 17-18, you had the Fultz thing, which was a weird cloud hanging over everything. You also had to overpay JJ Redick a lot just to get him to come to Philadelphia. You had 18-19, you had the weird star hunting thing, struck out on LeBron, didn't get any real good guys in free agency. Plus you also
got an interview. We got an interview. We raised the banner. We got a LeBron interview.
Exactly.
Not with LeBron, but we had a lunch with Rich Paul, I think.
Yeah, his representatives. It's a step in the right direction. You know, we've gotten so many free agents since then that obviously worked. It's momentum. It's all about culture building and whatever. But that was also Burnergate summer. That was also when we traded Mikal Bridges at the draft. That was probably the weirdest offseason that we've had maybe ever. And then you had 19-20, which was Jimmy Butler walks. We bring in Al Horford, talk ourselves into that. We basically completely revamped the team. And then the next offseason, we completely revamped the team again with Seth Curry and Danny Green. And then the year after that, you have Ben Simmons drama. As you said, this is the most normal offseason, and we're still getting investigated for tampering right now.
Well, that's just a normal thing for teams in the NBA, though. That we should be doing. You know, Michael Rubin went full on just our tampering agent. We should be getting investigated for tampering every year now.
Yeah, every team just has a large minority owner quit and then start a sports book that makes them millions, and then from there uses that money to pay guys to come to the team off the books. That's normal.
I don't
find a new
I have
slant.
no idea. I have no idea what you're talking about. James Harden's endorsement deal with Fanatics will be entirely above the board, have nothing to do with his status as a Philadelphia 76er.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. Yeah. We're in agreement on that for sure.
Yeah, if you're not getting investigated for tampering, you don't really want to win.
Yeah, exactly. Really do you have that dog in you if you don't get investigated for tampering? Think about all the GMs that get investigated for tampering. Pat Riley, dog. Total dog.
Winner.
I mean, he's a winner, cocaine addict.
Say which one about Pat Riley. He has the most dog in him of any professional sports GM in history. Pat Riley
100%.
has never given a shit about 2 years from now.
He's never given a shit about human beings. He just he is Gordon Gekko from Wall Street, but in the NBA. He is literally Michael Douglas in Wall. I've been saying this for years. He's Michael Douglas in Wall Street. Like that's Pat Riley, dude. Yeah, he's absolutely got that dog in him. But back to James Harden, because the James Harden thing is like, I do believe, I agree with you. I think he's going to be somewhere in between where he was in Brooklyn and where he was last year, probably a little bit closer to that Brooklyn side. I think having the time off, having just like a team that is kind of makes sense around him now, because I think as he gets older and as he is not able to be this heliocentric, ball dominant, on ball, crazy scorer, he's got to adjust his game, become a better catch and shoot guy. He's got to fight over screens on defense. He's got to do the hustle plays more. And I think that he definitely will. And it feels like he's trying to bring back his mid-range game because he can't create that separation on the perimeter as much and finish at the rim as much. So he's trying to bring back the floater and the mid-range, and getting guys like House and Tucker and Melton and Montrez, 3 of those guys who can shoot and play defense capably and rebound. And then the other guy, Montrez, being his old pick and roll partner. It does feel like that Harden will definitely be at least a little bit closer to what he was because of the recovery, and also because I just think the context is so improved. Like, the Sixers team is deep. This is a deep regular season team, at least. Like, from 1 to 10, I think Matisse Thybulle is like the 10th best player on the team right now, and he drives me fucking nuts, but he is good in the regular season. Like, our offensive rating in the regular season when Matisse Thybulle's on the court is totally fine, and defensively he adds a lot. So, like, in the regular season, I expect all of the improvements to help Harden a ton.
I mean, I think the other thing is, like, you know, I just go back to, like, you know, beforehand, the infamous tweet about, like, you know, Tyrese being like, Tyrese Maxey, I'm open, James Harden, and, you know, remember that. And it's just like, I've been really, I've loved how much, like, James Harden has really put into work to, like, make himself a part of this team, and, like, and I feel pretty confident that he will be able to, like, adapt his game into what the team needs him to be, the way that you were talking about. Like, I think he's trying. I put it there.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's not like the Russell Westbrook situation with the Lakers, because Russ doesn't have the skills to be able to do, like, Russ cannot shoot. If you can't shoot, you're not scalable next to LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Like, Harden has the ability to catch and shoot. Harden has the ability to be more of an off-ball player. Now, he showed flashes of that last year. His first 3 or 4 games with the Sixers, he was moving off the ball. He was relocating, catching, shooting. He was doing the things that we wanted him to do. And eventually he got back to those old habits that he had in Houston, but he didn't have the burst, the athleticism, all the stuff he had in Houston that allowed him to do that. So the hope is that because Daryl did all these moves that he clearly was a fan of, he wanted Montrez, he wanted PJ, he wanted a lot of these guys that they brought in. The hope is that he will adapt his game and realize this is Embiid's team, and this team's only going to go as far as Embiid takes us. And I think his relationship with Maxey has kind of been, like, so good that it feels as though he's not going to care about, like, he trusts Maxey. He won't, he will defer to Maxey because he knows Maxey is very fucking good and wants to win. And it feels like those 3 will have kind of a synergistic energy about them because of the fact that they're put in the context to win. They're all, like, they all seem to get along for now, at least. The wheels have not fallen off yet. Which they always do with James Harden teams. Let's be honest. They always do.
Yeah.
And Doc Rivers teams.
Well, you know, hopefully, like, you know, we're going to start the moral crusade to get Doc Rivers. It
would be funny if Harden was the one to do that, by the way. I'm so disgusted by this man.
I mean, James Harden doesn't own a computer. So,
yeah, it's true. He doesn't have internet. He doesn't know any of this is happening.
Yeah. I mean, actually, this incident might actually convince James Harden to get on Twitter now that he knows that's out there.
Yeah, it's totally possible. Well, no, James Harden is on Twitter. He tweeted at 1 p.m., rise and grind, which I was like, this is the most
Respect.
Philadelphia man of all time. I'm telling you, he was born to play in Philadelphia. He tweeted, first off, when he first got traded to the team, he showed up wearing sweatpants and a hoodie. And I was like, he's wearing the Philadelphia uniform already. And now he's tweeting rise and grind at 1 p.m. They lost in the playoffs and he blamed it on everyone else. I'm like, this man he's after our hearts.
Look, if the NBA let the Sixers play in sweatpants, we would sweep our way to the finals. We'd be undefeated. And that goes for every sport. That would just unlock everything.
It's true. We need
We're
that.
playing at half capacity.
You really need to just lean into the bit and embody what the city is. And we all just like you ever see Adam Sandler when he was here shooting Hustle and that picture went viral of him wearing the polo. He was wearing a polo and dirty sweatpants. And I was like, yeah, that's it. That's every guy that lives in Port Richmond.
Have you ever seen like the photos of like Adam Sandler at the red carpet for his movies?
I don't think so.
He doesn't give a shit. That's just what he wears. He just like shows up like, the rest, everyone else, like Kevin James and all that, whatever other of his buddies they cast in whatever particular movie that week.
Rob Schneider, Good Politics.
Yeah. But they all show up like wearing suits and all that because like Adam Sandler will literally just show up wearing like a sweatshirt and like a pair of jeans, like oversized jeans. And he's just like, I'm Adam Sandler. Who cares? I'm going to do whatever I want.
That's a baller move, dude. That's really James Harden, Adam Sandler. Like they get it.
Yeah. Adam Sandler, I have the most respect for anyone because he finessed his way into getting paid tens of millions of dollars to just go on vacations with his friends. And every now and then there's a camera running. It's fantastic. It's amazing.
Absolute king. Yeah.
What was it, Grown Ups and all that? No, he got Grown Ups too. That wasn't even a real movie. It was just he and his friends went to like, some like nature resort. And he just hung out with like Kevin James and I think who else was in that? Chris Rock?
I've never seen Grown Ups too. I don't know. Who cares?
I've never seen it either. I just saw the ads. And I was
I've never seen any of those movies, but I respect him now because of Hustle. Because it was cool that he made a movie about Philadelphia and the Sixers, and somehow tapped into what?
I wasn't Embiid supposed to be in Uncut Gems?
Yeah, he was supposed to be Kevin Garnett.
Yeah, and then why wasn't Embiid in there?
Why wasn't Embiid in Hustle? Why was Tobias Harris the star player that Bo Cruz played against?
Because they had to give Tobias something. Come on, man.
They're like, all right, come on. Like he's on. He's already got a max contract. He's gonna get $180 million. He also gets to be the star of an Adam Sandler movie.
No, that was the propaganda. They're trying to trade him this offseason. They were like, put him in as the big star, max contract guy, star player from Philadelphia. Do that. Maybe then we can.
They send it to Michael Jordan, and he's like, damn. Well, I didn't even know he could beat Bo Cruz.
Who's the Kings GM again? What's his name?
Monty McNair.
Maybe he'll watch it on a flight and he'll be like, oh, hey.
Well, look, Harrison Barnes' contract's expiring, and he's basically Tobias Harrison Barnes, so.
It's weird to me that Tobias Harris never played for the Kings. That feels like it should have happened.
He will. I think he's all right. He either has to play for the Kings or the Pacers before his career is over. Those are two teams. No, he feels like a Pacer. If you think about what the Pacers represent,
he doesn't feel like a Pacer to me because he's got a little too much. He's been an All-Star, hasn't he?
He's never made the All-Star team. He was like the last guy. He was like the last guy to miss the cut like 2 or 3 times.
We give a max contract to a guy who's never made an All-Star team. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That's fucking team.
5-year max, by the way. His dad negotiated the contract. That's an all-time fleece. All right. So let's move on to the next point on this, which is if James Harden comes back and he is the James Harden of old, at least some resemblance of that. The second most important thing to me is Embiid. Obviously, his health is the most important thing. That goes without saying. but Embiid making a leap as a passer and playmaker with the spacing that we're going to be providing around him. So basically, everyone at every position that will play with Embiid, except for maybe if Thibault plays with him, is a capable shooter off the catch. Melton, Tucker, House, all the guys we brought in, plus obviously Maxey. Harden, we're hoping molds into that role. Tobias has grown a little bit into that catch and shoot role. So now we're going to have a ton of guys.
Hero of Turkey, Furkan Korkmaz.
Of course, yeah, who just shot 29%, but is still considered like an elite shooter for some reason because he's a white guy. We get it. We understand. So basically my two things for Embiid are that helps his passing and playmaking, similar to how he looked better last year without Ben Simmons in the half court. He was able to make better reads and better passes off of the dribble and off of post-ups and off of movement and everything. Then also that will allow him to, since we have like multiple guys, I feel like because we now have 3 guys around Embiid that can run a little bit of offense in the half court in Harden, Maxey, and Tobias, I feel like that should allow Embiid to have more of his rests throughout the games that he talks about how important it is and focus more on defense, because a lot of the defense this year is going to be on Embiid because we have Maxey and Harden on the perimeter. And then we have good help defenders in Thibault, Tucker, and Melton. And Daniel House is better on the ball, but he's a good defender. But most of this is going to come down to me is, can Joel Embiid be the Joel Embiid of 2017 to 2019? Because since then, he's been good on defense and when locked in, very good. But there's definitely not quite the level of athleticism. There's not quite the level of stamina on that end because he has to carry so much of the load on offense that will these other guys being on the team for a full season, having a lot of guys who you can run offense there, even Trez when he's on the bench can run a little bit of offense, just doing dribble handoffs and stuff. Will that let Embiid be the best defensive version of himself and be a defensive player of the year candidate? Because that's what I think it will take for the Sixers to have like a legitimately good defense.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, it just comes down to, like, you really have to put into context, like, just how weird this team has been for so many years. Like, because there was a really long stretch up until we got James Harden. And I'm not really even sure, like, I guess at least when Jimmy Butler left, and maybe, but, like, there was a time when, like, if the Sixers desperately needed a bucket in the end of a game, and like, they were in, the end of the fourth quarter, they need a bucket. The only option was really give it to Joel Embiid, have him force his way to the basket, and sink it. And like he had to play with that in his mind, really, knowing that like he had to leave something in the tank because so he wasn't really able to devote himself to defense up until really. When we got James Harden, even then, it was the team was still like this weird, I mean, we're going into a season, I think, and this is insane because he's been so good, but this is like the first time we've really had a team, I think, that's been constructed around having a player like Joel Embiid to the degree that it should be, because so much time was devoted to like trying to make Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid work.
Right. Yeah.
This is like the first time that we've had a capable GM like Daryl Morey start an off season with like the full focus just being, let's put together a team that will make our MVP candidate thrive. Let's put this around.
I compared it to like college recruiting. Like you don't fire a college coach after their first 2 seasons because it takes them 2 to 3 years to build their own team. And I thought about this earlier, and by the end of the season, there's a very good possibility that Joel Embiid is the only player left on this team that when Daryl Morey came here, he was on the team. Like he drafted Maxey, he brought in Harden, he brought in all these guys this offseason, he brought in Niang last offseason. The only ones left are Shake, Furkan, Thibault, and Embiid. And and Tobias, but the Tobias thing is separate because Tobias is he's been trying to move Tobias.
It's just so funny because whenever there's like an analysis of like Daryl Morey's time here, there's always like the caveat of being like, and there's also Tobias. He hasn't made get out of the Tobias contract, but like, who could? Who's been able to? Who could have? It's he keeps pulling like these magic wizard thing. Like he turned Horford into an asset. He managed to spin the Ben Simmons situation into James Harden. He drafted Maxey. He's doing all these wonderful things, and then the corner that's just, and then the Tobias contract and his max contract. But like I can't work.
What can you do? Yeah, exactly. yeah. I mean, what do you want me to do? Like, no one fucking wants the contract. What can I? And the hardest part about that is.
It's like a riff on like one of those fairy tales where like you're spinning yarn into hay into gold, and it's just amazing. But you just have to buy it. And it's like, yeah, I don't know what you want. He's gonna be over there.
Yeah,
he's gonna maybe get a double, and that's pretty good.
You're like, look, a year from now, we might be able to move his expiring contract. Maybe we just got one. Yeah. He's got a thing in his office that just says like 365 days left until Tobias's contract becomes an expiring.
Well, honestly, I think he might be able to trade him this trade deadline with the selling point that, hey, next offseason, this is going to be a very valuable expiring contract. Wouldn't you like to be able to?
You don't have cap space. You have no cap space. You might as well take on this massive contract that can match in salary for trades. That's honestly his. But the thing is that I actually have Tobias on here as well as one of my points here, and it's basically, do we get the same Tobias that we saw after we traded for James Harden? So once he bought back into catch and shoot guy, keep the ball moving as much as possible, try on defense. Now he's going to be the second or third perimeter defensive option, whereas last year he was the first. And sometimes that went well and he looked great, and then other times that didn't look well, and Jimmy Butler scored 45 points. Like, that's kind of what the reality of the situation was, that Tobias is not a defensive stopper. He was thrust into a role that he was not prepared for, and he did a pretty good job considering that until it really mattered. So I basically have here, like, and it's another hard thing because the Sixers just don't have, like, everyone's like, just trade Tobias. And maybe it is an addition by subtraction thing where you get rid of Tobias and the team actually gets better because they get a guy who fits a little bit more. Especially with this team, Tobias seems a little bit more redundant because you're hoping Maxey gets more on-ball reps. You're hoping that the Harden, Joel Embiid pick and roll is your bread and butter. You're hoping that Embiid will have a lot more post-ups. And maybe you're like, let's just get a volume shooter like Bojan Bogdanovic or someone like Tobias, like Harrison Barnes is kind of in a similar mold of player but makes a lot less money. And that's totally possible. But it's also totally possible that you trade Tobias Harris and you're like, oh, fuck, we have no more wings who can capably, like, shoot and defend and do both of those things. Like, that's really what Tobias is. Like, he basically has to be, I joked last year, we need him to be Tobias Harrison Barnes. We need him to be Jay Crowder is what I'm trying to say. Like, we need him to just go out there and put up, like, 8 threes in a game and try his ass off on defense, even if he's not the best defender in the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Tobias Harris, like, the thing that gets me with him is that, like, it's not even necessarily that, like, he doesn't fit the team. It's he's there. We're I mean, it's kind of just like by, like, he's been here long enough that everyone else has kind of just adjusted to him being there in the rotation. But like, if Tobias Harris were like on a normal contract, I don't think that, we would just be like, oh yeah, this Tobias Harris, he's not. He's
just a net. He's a net neutral. It feels like overall, and like he's there and it's fine, and he's not there and it's fine. Like, that's kind of how the overall feeling is about him.
It's really just like, my man's making the max contract, and it's just but like, again, it's just like you said, it's just like, I don't really know what they could get for him that would really make the team better, unless you want to just like say it would just be better not to have him. But I just don't, like you said, I just don't know if that's true.
It reminds me of, so like, my dad, his entire life has been talking about going to San Francisco. Like, he's obsessed with it. He's like, oh, I want to go to San Francisco, blah, 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 blah. My sister,
have you told him about planes?
Yes,
he can
I've explained this to him many times. You can literally just go whenever you want. You have vacation from work. You have money to go. You can get on a plane and go to San Francisco. And my sister recently said that she wanted, like, my parents, she was trying to talk them into going to San Francisco. And then I was like, but then what will he talk about after that? Like, that's all he said. That's what's going to happen when Tobias Harris gets traded is like, we just talked about how Tobias Harris was on a max contract for 4 years. And now we can't talk about that anymore. We can't talk about how Tobias is fine, but he's overpaid. And if he made less money, it would be okay. Like, it's going to be weird if a year from now we trade Tobias. He's on another team. And then we're just like, all right, what do we talk about now? We went to San Francisco. What do we do?
I mean, it's true, actually. It's real, though, because, like, it's been such a convenient, like, whenever something goes wrong with this team, we're like, well, if we weren't paying Tobias Harris $60 million a year, I'm sure we'd be doing great.
Shit, that we might just have to admit that, like, damn, maybe Embiid is, like, just not as good as Giannis.
You've been banned from the Discord.
From my own podcast.
Yeah.
Cold takes, please expose me later. I hope I'm wrong.
I mean, it's just he's just always been there, man. He's just like he ties the room together.
I honestly, I've been thinking about it. Other than when I would imagine Furkan and Shake are both traded this season, or one of the two is traded this season.
I think one of the two. I think Shake sticks around just because he's just like a good guy to have. It's like your 14th guy on the bench.
Who really cares? But like, if Furkan is traded, Tobias will be the third longest tenured Sixer. He's just been around. Like, Shake is technically the third longest right now. Furkan is the second longest tenured. And then Tobias, I was going through in my head. I was like, okay, so you have Embiid, then you have Furkan, then you have Shake. And then I was going through it, and I just skipped right over to George Niang. Like, I totally forgot about Tobias. I was like, George Niang's actually, like... Actually, I think it would technically be Maxey and Joe and Paul Reed because they were drafted before Niang. And technically, I think
it's too, like, wait, do you ever see The Simpsons joke where, like, because the principal Skinners and they're like talking to the like Springfield Elementary School, talking about like the town's having some big like annual celebration. It's like, it's the biggest celebration since the bicentennial. Of course, you children are too young to remember that, except for Kearney, and then Kearney's over there like shaving, like, yeah, it was quite the event. That's Tobias Harris on the team, just still being here. Like Joel Embiid, like talking to the team, like, of course, you guys weren't here to experience that.
Jimmy Butler,
yeah.
You guys don't remember when Jimmy Butler called out Brett Brown in film practice, do you? Tobias does. Actually, I don't even remember if he was on the team yet, but who cares?
The one thing I will say about Tobias, this is completely unrelated. I feel like he's like one of those guys that like 8 years from now, when he like retires or something like that, and he's done playing overseas or wherever he goes, he's gonna be like one of those dudes who just like shows back up to the Sixers games, and we all just kind of like love him for it.
We're like, hey, Tobias is here. Okay, I kind of remember him. He made that shot against the Lakers over Alex Caruso.
It's like how Allen Iverson, like obviously it's not Allen Iverson, but how Allen Iverson just slowly turned into like a guy who's just always at the Sixers games.
It's just I
think he's gonna do the same thing. I think he'll just like keep showing up at games, and eventually he'll just be like a regular sight on the baseline, and we'll be like, hey, Tobias. Yeah.
What you're trying to say is that Tobias will just be around.
Yeah. I think. And I think, and then the Philadelphia inferiority complex will kick in, and we'll just like bask in like a professional athlete choosing to spend time with us that will just like glorify him.
It's true.
We'll talk about
he had a max contract. Harris. He almost made the All-Star team.
He wasn't that bad, actually, when you look at the numbers, and not too hard. He actually wasn't Look, that
he put
bad.
up an efficient 19 a game. Never 20, but an efficient 19.
He blue-collar guy, lunch pail, showed up, understood his assignment, never had the flash, wasn't there to showboat.
Good guy in the community. He read books and went to libraries.
Sneaky fast.
Underrated athlete, actually, if you think about it. All right. So I have, besides Tobias, I have a few more things here that we will get to. The obvious one, which I just talked about, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I just did an entire episode on the Patreon. If you want to subscribe to that, by the way, about Tyrese Maxey.
I don't even listen to your like free podcast, Trill.
That's fine. I don't care about you.
If I ever become like an avid fan of anything you're producing, you're doing something wrong. You have to change it.
That's actually a good point.
Not
now that I think about it, thank you for that advice. I'll know in the future now if you're like, great episode. I'm like, all right, delete that one, please.
Yeah,
we'll record another one instead.
Burn it. Start from scratch. Anyway, Maxey.
But Maxey makes a leap into the all-star conversation and most improved player conversation next year. So I think he was already in that conversation for most improved player this year.
Yeah, I was
players
for him.
But the players that win are generally like in the all-star game or they're like just outside the all-star game. And by the all-star break this year, Maxey was not in the conversation. I think next year the goal should be he's scoring over 20 points a game. He's doing it very efficiently. He's made leaps as a defender and a passer and a playmaker, and he is solidifying himself as one of the best young players under 25 in the NBA.
It's important to know that, like, at the start of last year, Maxey wasn't even supposed to be in the starting five. He was just like, we didn't have Ben Simmons, and we were like, okay, well, Maxey had some good flashes last year. You know, he seems like a fun young player. You know, maybe throw him in. We'll see how that works. And he just took off.
Yeah,
he just ran with it. Like, do you know how good you have to be for Doc Rivers to play you when you're like 21 years old?
Exactly. Like you know how good Doc Rivers have to be for Doc Rivers to play you, and you've just never like heard a Nirvana album. You're just like you've never like seen an episode of Seinfeld, and he's playing you. It's It's an amazing feat. He was born after Seinfeld was off the air. That's how much Doc loved him.
If you call it a save icon and not a floppy disk, Doc Rivers will not play you.
If he ever brings up a VHS tape and you don't know what it is, you're not in the rotation anymore. What a DVD? Absolutely not. If you know what a DVD is, that's way too young.
If Doc Rivers asks if you have it taped and you say, is Betamax okay? He will play you 44 minutes a game.
This is why Paul Millsap was playing last year, folks.
Doc Rivers asked why Paul Millsap wasn't on the like group chat last night, and Paul Millsap said that he ran out of minutes, and then Doc was like, "You're never gonna miss a rotation."
I don't think
the joke is that back in the day when you had to buy minutes.
Oh God, that was a bad one.
Remember? Oh, fuck you! Fuck
prepaid.
Fuck you.
I was gonna say, yeah, no. If you don't know, I was gonna say, if you don't know where you were when Kennedy was shot, Doc will demand you were traded. Liam said in the comments. But what I was gonna say was that if you don't remember where you were when you heard about the fall of the USSR, Doc you're not Challenger explosion. You got to know these things. You got to know your historical facts about the 80s and 90s if you want to stay in Doc's rotation, is my point here. All right. So, obviously, the Maxey thing goes without saying.
Mad at you. Fuck you. Fuck you for not enjoying my joke.
It was a dad joke, and I will not support it. I will not support that joke. Are you just... Is this you... You're now going on strike for the rest of the episode?
I'm just thinking of all the horrible things I've said on your pod. Somehow this is where you've joined. Of all the objectionable content I have provided, somehow this is your line in the sand.
How dare you joke about prepaid cell phones, dude? I had to have one until I was 18 because my dad thought that the regular phones were how they tracked you. And he was right. The NSA scandal came out years later, and he was 100% right.
He was correct.
He was 100% correct.
Have you ever given him credit for that?
I give him credit all the time. I'm like, yeah, no, he didn't have Easy Pass until he was basically forced to. We didn't have the internet or cable. My dad is like basically Alex Jones, but not a racist.
Wait, Are we sure your dad just doesn't want to go to San Francisco so we can track down Silicon Valley and finally settle this score?
He's like, where's Zuckerberg? No, he eventually got a Facebook, so I guess he just kind of gave in. He doesn't use it, but he is on Facebook. So I think that eventually he just decided it's not worth the fight. You just at a certain point, you just got to give in to technological fascism. Man. You know what I mean?
Man, that got real death of a salesman real fast. Like just Willie Loman giving in.
He's literally a salesman. So there you go. All right. So last few things. Let's just run over these real quick. So I don't think we ever actually talked about Maxi. We just went on like 8. I just did an entire episode on Maxi. If you want to listen to that, subscribe to the Patreon. But like, what else is there to say about Maxi that is like important for next year? He's very good. We love him. He's better, sadly. He's amazing. We love Tyrese. He's the best. Like, I think that I talk about Tyrese Maxey more than any player in history. Like, my girlfriend is like, shut the fuck up about Tyrese Maxey. And I'm like, I never will. We wanted to draft him. We drafted him and he's become a star. I will never shut the fuck up. I will be on my deathbed talking about 2020 draft night when I ripped off my shirt when we drafted Tyrese Maxey.
I had never heard of him until that moment. And I was like, oh, people seem happy about this Maxey pick. Guess that might work out.
That was the first year that I was really a draft sicko. So that was kind of my introduction to this whole thing, really.
How was that the first? You're a Sixers fan, and that was the first year that you became a draft sicko?
Well, I mean, I was into the draft before, but like I didn't scout players and shit. Like I didn't. Okay. We had picks in the 20s, so I was scouting like 15 guys. When we had picks at the top, it was like you were picking between 3 dudes. It was like, do you like D'Angelo Russell or Jahlil Okafor? Unfortunately, I like D'Angelo Russell. We got Jahlil Okafor, and honestly, don't care about having either of them now. But D'Angelo Russell is obviously a much better NBA player than Jahlil Okafor, who's free now Jahlil. In China. Yeah, he's in China. Go. He is free. He's there. He's trying to free Tibet. Parody, satire, country. Parody, satire. Yeah. They are very similar as players. It's funny he would take a stand against Ennis like that. Mr. Freedom.
What else is on your list? We have to try to keep it.
Yeah. All right. Let's keep it going here. Let's not get too off the rails, folks. Okay, so we get the Miami version of PJ Tucker. So we don't get the PJ Tucker that was wasting away in Houston. We don't get the version of PJ Tucker that even with the Bucks, like he was pretty inconsistent. Like we get like last year's version of PJ Tucker who hits all his corner threes, who can attack closeouts and do a little bit of playmaking off the short roll, who can hit finger rolls and floaters. And then basically from there, he can become kind of the guy that we need on defense. He can pick up the star player on the other team. He can rebound. He can add a lot of shit that we've just been missing from the wing position. Basically the entire time that Joel Embiid has been a Sixer, like other than the Jimmy Butler time for that small amount of time. But that's basically what we need from PJ Tucker.
He just needs to be the mythological decent wing option that has just never
serviceable been, like, wing / big that can play center sometimes, even though he's 6'2". Like we need a dog. He needs to be the dog that we've been missing. Basically, Mike Scott, but good. Sorry, Z. Sorry, Z.
Yeah, he dunked on me on Twitter once, so it's fine. We can make fun of Mike Scott.
How dare he? What happened?
I forget. I made some kind of joke.
Yeah.
At Z, because she replied to like one of his tweets, and I replied to her, and it was like joking. But then like I guess he didn't know me. He didn't know that I was one of those sickos who showed up to the goddamn parking lots and the Mike Scott Hive. And so he just like dunked on me for like following him, even though I was joke calling him washed.
Okay, yeah, joke parody.
It was a good,
even though
it was a parody. Shh, shut up. It was a good ratio, and so
I feel like I vaguely remember this, but he was washed. Like Mike Scott was only good for the Sixers for like half a season. He was washed pretty quickly.
Yeah, no, it made me respect him more. Again, he was cashing checks from the Sixers without earning them. It's the coolest thing you can do. Taking Joshua Harris's money is the coolest thing anyone can do.
Yeah,
I recommend it to everyone.
But basically, Mike Scott, but good, is what this team has needed. And I'm hoping PJ Tucker can fill that role, is what I'm trying to say here. So there's PJ Tucker. Then there's I have two more things here. Actually, three. One is, do we get Daniel Houston that was wasting away in Houston at the end, just like PJ Tucker? Do we get the version that was there before when James Harden was there and Chris Paul? Or do we get the checked out Daniel House who over dribbles and does all this stuff? Like, we just need, once again, a serviceable bench wing. Basically, what James Ennis did for us a few years ago, just to compare it to the 18-19 Sixers again. Just a serviceable bench wing. Hopefully we get that out of Daniel House. Maybe him and Doc can bond over being horny together.
I'm sorry, I just let you talk this whole time to lull you into a false sense of security that I didn't catch that Daniel Houston that you dropped at the very beginning of that.
Oh, I didn't even realize I said that.
Yeah, you did.
Well,
yeah, I'm calling you out.
I've been listening to a lot of Mike Jones.
Because you made fun of my joke earlier.
Yeah, fair enough.
No, I mean, it's so funny how so many of these points are just like decent wing for all these. Can anyone be serviceable wing player?
Can we be normal? Can we be a normal NBA team for the first time ever?
Can
Crystal
this be
Ball
a
says
team
no.
that just once plays basketball in the manner of a somewhat standard National Basketball Association offense?
That's all we ask.
They've never done it. And the entire offseason, now that you're putting it in perspective, revolved around trying to make that happen. And I think somehow it still won't.
The Sixers will never be fully normal. I mean, they'll just never be fully normal. But this is the closest semblance of a normal team so far. And I think that if everything we talk about happens, and these last two things are very important to me, but if everything that we've talked about so far happens, I think they're going to be an elite regular season team. I think the NBA is too good to win like 65 games now. Like, it's just like when the Warriors were doing that, when even like the first Bucks go around, when they were winning a ton of games, the league was weaker than it is right now. The league is super fucking talented. There's like 20 teams that are really good. And then there's like a handful of bad teams, but you don't get bad teams on the regular to beat up on.
Well, it's that. And like, also like teams don't really even like try to be those like 60 plus win teams anymore. Like there's like, there's been de-emphasis on like, teams just don't give a shit about winning those like January or February. Like, if you can choose between grinding out and winning that January game, or like giving your star players some extra rest so they play better in like May, teams now are just like, okay, obviously I'm just gonna, if we lose this road game in Indiana, who cares? Who's gonna care at the end?
It's a marathon, not a sprint kind of thing. And I do think the Sixers, part of the reason why they brought in Montrez, who's the next guy that we're going to talk about here, is because they think that keeping Joel and Embiid healthy for the playoffs is the most important thing. And if that is the case, we need to have multiple backup center options: Paul Reed, Montrezl Harrell, PJ Tucker. They better not be over 6'8", or I'm going to lose my mind. I think Charles Bassey will probably get cut before the season due to the Montrezl Harrell signing, or maybe he gets traded. I would be pretty surprised if they rostered 5 centers again. But my whole point on this is like Montrez being
Elton Brand's still on the team technically, so it could happen.
Yeah, he's like, all right, I let you draft Maxey. I let you draft Springer. You gotta give me Bassey and Reed. They stay on the team forever. They have lifetime contracts on the low. PJ Tucker, he's 6'5", but he plays like a center. Like, I need to have those guys. George Niang, like, you got to be 6'5" and up. That's it. That's all I ask for. But I have here Montrez being happy with his role. Like, I think that is incredibly important, because the last 2 teams he played for, he was on 3 teams he played for, he was not happy with his role, and he let it show. And when he's not happy with his role, he's going to make us think about it. Like, he's not going to be quiet and just be like, oh, a good teammate guy. Like, he's going to cause problems. And you need to make sure that Montrez is playing about 20 minutes a night, or else he's not going to be happy. You got to run actions with him. You got to hope that Doc comes up with creative things to do for him, which Doc has, in the past has actually done a good job of with Montrez. But I mean,
I know it's just
Montrez. He's the sixth man. It's literally JJ Redick and Montrez. Like, he knows how to use role players. He has no idea how to use stars. He had Paul George running off pin downs. I was like, Paul George should be running pick and roll. What the fuck are you doing? And he had, but like, he had JJ. He always used JJ well as a movement shooter. He knows what to do with these. He knows there's two archetypes he works well with: movement shooter, except for Isaiah Joe, who he apparently hates with his life. And then Montrez, DeAndre types, who are like pick and roll bigs, basically. And the hope here is that he knows what kind of role he wants for Montrez, and Montrez buys into that role. And I think Montrez is going to be a good regular season addition for sure. In the playoffs, I'll probably throw up all over my shirt when Doc plays him too much, and we win the Joel Embiid minutes by 25 points and lose the game. And
as is tradition,
we'll go from there. It's really going to be the peak of that this year if Doc continues to allow Montrez just to play 12 minutes or whatever minutes he's playing in the playoffs.
I do think that this is going to be, if that kind of shit happens again, I do think this is finally going to be the final Doc season. Like, I think that
100%.
He's run out of runway. Daryl Morey has really given him a roster that, again, it's a normal NBA team. It's a normal, functional, high ceiling NBA team. And if he can't make it work, and he does, like you said, like, lose the game while Joel Embiid's winning his minutes by like 25, 28 points, I think he's finally out of runway. There's no more excuses.
Yeah, I think that if only because Daryl Morey would start to run out of excuses. Because if Daryl Morey starts to run out of excuses, he's got to have a scapegoat. And it's like, Tobias and Doc are the only guys left before you have to look at Harden and Embiid and be like, are we really championship contenders? So that's really what it comes down to. Is I think that he'll use this next. If they lose, Doc will be the guy to go, that's the one more emergency. That's the one more emergency ripcord to pull.
Yeah,
smash.
It's like the one. Really. But it is. It's like the last. Like, we don't need to fundamentally completely change the team again. We just need a different coach.
Right. And we need a new coach. We need to dump Tobias, and then we need to kind of regather ourselves for one more year. Because if you don't, then that's when Joel starts to look around and be like, okay, I'm about to be 30. I haven't been past the second round potentially. What are we doing here? So I do agree with that. I think that Embiid does like Doc, though. I think that it would have to take a bad exit for that to happen, is all I'm going to say.
I think he likes Doc, but he only likes him like enough. He's not going to be necessarily fighting to keep him. Especially
Same with Brett. Same thing with Brett.
Yeah. It's just
exactly.
Joel Embiid's like one of those stars who is content to kind of just he doesn't put his thumb down on the scale too much in terms of like roster building and team management. He's very willing to kind of he clearly puts his input in, and he clearly is part. And like, we've seen that more with Morey, because I don't know what the hell was happening beforehand, but like his clearly was not discussed.
Well, no one knew who was in charge. There were 7 guys.
Yeah, it's really not the burner gate and everything around it got all the attention. But what didn't get attention is how, like, for a year after that, we just had like this weird front office management of like this amorphous blob of Colangelo holdovers who were just kind of like ruling it by very poorly run committee who did not know how basketball worked in any sense of the way.
Yeah, they were consultant guys. They were like, they were pencil pushers.
They would do thought, well, Al Horford can play. Yeah, there's pencil pusher. You
pencil pusher, right? Yeah, I don't know. That sounded good in my head, and I was like, say that, you'll sound smart. So, all right, my last thing here, let's just get to this and wrap it up, is before I give my, if they hit their upside, what is their ceiling? I think that Thibault or one of the young players, Isaiah Joe, if he's on the team, Paul Reed, Jaden Springer, one of these guys has to show legitimate either improvement from Thibault offensively, or one of those guys has to be either a key rotation player like Isaiah Joe as a shooter off the bench, Paul Reed, maybe if he can play a little bit of the 4 as a 4-5 type. It either has to be that is the way it goes, or they prove themselves valuable and have potential to be part of a trade that gives the Sixers one more rotation player. Because I still feel like even though this team's really deep, even though this team is the best team that makes the most sense from a basketball construction standpoint around Joel Embiid, it still feels like they're one guy short that they can trust in the playoffs. And if that is the case, bringing in a guy like Reggie Bullock or Jay Crowder or one of these kind of role playery wing type shooter defensive guys would really do a lot for their playoff rotation. And it would really solidify that last spot in the rotation to me and make it so that like we're not having to rely on guys who are question marks like Thibault and Daniel House and George Niang, who like we're pretty sure can't play deep into the playoffs anyway. So giving that one more guy to really solidify that rotation, whether it is one of the young players or it's someone they trade for, is really what I think it will take for this team to hit their ceiling.
Yeah, I mean, it's Reggie Bullock. Like there was a whole like moment there for a second. We all thought that Reggie Bullock was about to. He put on something on Instagram like saying like on my way to Philadelphia or something like that. Or, like,
his friends,
Sixer.
His friends ran into him and they're all from Philly and they knew him.
Yeah.
And they posted pictures and they were like, future Sixer. He just told me he's going to Philly, And this was this was during slop season. So everyone was like, oh my God, we traded but then again, I remember after we realized it wasn't true, I was like, there's no fucking way the Mavs are trading with the Sixers again. Because last time they did, they looked like fucking idiots trading Seth Curry for Josh Richardson.
But like it just, I was listening because it just made so much like Reggie Bullock is like the exact kind of guy that we really just need to have to like really tie a bow around this offseason, you know?
Exactly.
To really rather and aren't they super in? And they were like the Mavs were apparently like super in on Matisse Thybulle. They really like him. And it just
the Blazers and the Mavs really like Thybulle.
And like you know, like you said, it's just I mean, like if one of our guys steps up and does it, I think it would have to be Joe because like I think that just makes it's the clearest like ramp to how he could be that kind of like off the bench contributor.
I am going to be honest. I like Isaiah Joe, and I hope that is the case for him. Yeah. Unless he put on serious weight over the summer, I don't see a way he's in the rotation without injuries.
Yeah.
Because he can only play the 2, and now you have Maxey, Harden, Melton, House, Thybulle all ahead of him in terms of playing the 2. His contract is not guaranteed, so he probably is going to get waived or traded anyway. And I do just want to say, also Shake Milton. He's competing for minutes with Shake Milton at the 2 as well. So, like, there are a ton of guys. I think in theory, I agree. I think Isaiah Joe is that guy that makes the most sense. That could potentially be like a Justin Holiday or a Reggie Bullock type that you could bring off the bench, have him play the 2 and the 3. He'd have to get bigger to play the 3, which I don't even know if he's capable of. And you might not even want him to because that sometimes can, like with Shake Milton, we saw it fucked up his touch and like his shot has not been the same since. So I just want to say that like, I do think that Isaiah Joe, if I had to guess, Isaiah Joe is not on the team by the time they're in the playoffs next year. Like I would say the odds are pretty high he's gone. I actually can't believe I'm saying this, but I think if anyone that's on the team right now, other than Paul Reed, who I think should be in the rotation regardless, and is a better NBA player than Thybulle from a two-way perspective. But I really do think that if there's anyone on the team, it literally just comes down to Thybulle. And I've been saying this forever as a joke, like, oh, in 2030, we're going to be saying if Thybulle can only hit 35% of his threes. But I will say the fact that Danny Green came out and was like, after he was traded, not even when he was on the team, and he said, yeah, Thybulle hits every 3 in practice. Like, we have to guard him like he's me. Like, he doesn't miss 3s in practice. Like, it is a confidence issue is what he was trying to say. Is like, if he can get that confidence back, whether it's to show another team that he has offensive value and can play, or it's to become the Sixers' 8th or 9th man that just fills these spot minutes and isn't a fucking disaster on offense, because we know what he can bring defensively. That, like, I think he has a clearer path to that than pretty much any other wing on the roster that isn't going to be solidly in the rotation.
No, I mean, like, Matisse Thybulle, who can, like, at least draw some attention on offense, not even like be the focus, but just draw like one man in coverage is probably one of the best rotation players in the NBA, just based on what he can bring from the defense. It's just that right now, I mean, when he's out there, it's basically 4-on-5 defense, and they're just like,
exactly.
And he's over there like, and you get, does anybody need a towel, some water? I can help with that. But yeah, I mean, like you said, I guess that is, he does have the clearest off ramp, but like it's just like shoot better. Like I can't explain how to do it. Just like
it's the simplest path. It just could be the most difficult because of who he is.
And I get like of any season, this is because like we have shooters. Like now there's guys who will demand attention on the perimeter around him. Joel Embiid's still on the team, so like if he's ever gonna get like wide open shots, it's gonna be at the start of this season, when he's got like these other guys who can shoot, and so it's just going to be, can he do it or not? Can he? Because like right now, like he could be on the floor usually with at least like 2 or 3 guys who like are going to demand perimeter defense, and like they can't just leave him open. I honestly think he might get like wide open, like literally no defender within 5 or 10 feet of him kind of shots, and it's just going to have to come down to can he actually make more than like a quarter of them.
He was in the top 3 for wide open shots in the NBA last year in terms of like
and no one within 5 feet. I think it's gonna be even worse. It's gonna be even worse or better for him next year, because he's like the
worse because there's pressure on him.
Yeah, he's gonna be like the only guy on the roster that like opposing defenses are like, yeah, you can sag all the way off him. You don't have to worry about it. So he's gonna. I honestly think he might have the most wide open shots of anyone, and it's just can you sing some of those?
Exactly. Yeah. So I totally agree. I think that this team, if I had to guess, I don't think Isaiah Joe's on the team. By the end of the season, Isaiah Joe's gone, Korkmaz is gone, Thybulle's gone. If only for the fact that they don't really have Joe. I think he's either going to get cut or traded before the season. Mm-hmm. I think that Thybulle and Korkmaz are the main salary guys that could be moved, like them and Niang. And then in terms of like another team really wanting someone, there's a possibility that like if Montrez looks really good and PJ proves he can play the 5, like there's a possibility that if there is another team out there, because Paul Reed's going into the last year of his deal just like Thybulle is, just like a lot of these guys are, Isaiah Joe. If there is a team out there that's interested in Paul Reed and we get to around the deadline and they're like, we want Paul Reed and we have X role player that actually would fit pretty good with you, whether it's like Bojan Bogdanovic or it's Malik Beasley. Like I'm thinking of the Jazz, the rebuilding teams, Torrey Craig from the Suns, if they're trying to like make a tax move or something. The Hawks with Justin Holiday. Like, I don't think they're going to trade them 1-for-1 for those guys, but I think there could be some sort of package that is involved that could benefit the Sixers that would get them one of those guys. Although I have been told they cannot acquire Bojan Bogdanovic or Harrison Barnes without moving off Tobias Harris. So that is, and same with Eric Gordon. So like those guys are pretty much off the table.
Oh no, not Tobias.
Well, as we talked
Mr.
about,
Harris. Yeah,
as we've talked about, it's impossible. Yeah. So let's wrap this up by saying my ceiling for this team, I realistically think this team could win if they are the best version of themselves. I think there's a world where they can win close to 60 games, 58, 59 games. I think they could be a dominant regular season team, because one of the things that people really overrate for the regular season sometimes is depth. But if you have star power at the top with 3 legit guys plus depth, and your 4th and 5th starter are reliable and good fits, and your bench is better than it's ever been, and Doc Rivers, even as a regular season coach, never loses. Like, he always goes at least 500. Even when Joel Embiid is out, he does an okay job. Like, they compete in those games.
I just want to say real quick, like in terms of depth, I just want to say we never really even discussed Melton.
No, who's the best bench player?
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what a normal offseason this was. We didn't even discuss him. We was like, oh yeah, he's just a great player, the exact kind of addition they needed, so they did it. Normal team, normal NBA thing. But like, I mean, just like how strange. But like, it's just like he's really the kind of guy off the bench that the Sixers have like just never had in terms of just being like a normal, good guy who brings exactly what they need off the bench. And yeah, it's just weird to think about.
He's basically Thibault if he could shoot, which is exactly what they've missed. Like, they're very similar defensive players.
We got so sick of waiting.
Yeah, we're just like, just get Thibault who can shoot. Fuck it. And also, he can put the ball on the ground, and it's not always a disaster. Like, those major things. As I've said before on the last podcast, I'll say it on this podcast, their goal this offseason was, let's get defensive guys who don't take anything off the table offensively, that can still capably survive on offense, but are going to bring massive defensive impact. And I think they did a really good job of getting much more athletic, of getting much better at shooting, much better at defending, much better at rebounding. All of their weaknesses from last year were solved with role players. And if there's two things that could make it so that they can't reach their ceiling, it's injuries and it's some weird vibe shit, which between Doc and Harden and Embiid and Montrez and whatever, there's potential for that. There is a downside to that. But if they are going to, just from a talent perspective, and from this team should be a very good regular season team, I'm projecting if they hit their upside close to 60 wins, I think they'll be first in the Eastern Conference. I think that their ceiling is like the 1 seed and their floor is like the 5 seed in the regular season if there's no sort of catastrophe. And I think that in the playoffs, I'm going to go their floor is the second round. And I'm going to say that their ceiling is an NBA Finals appearance. I really do think that this team is the best team that they've had since 18-19. I think that this is the team that makes
it's complete. It feels complete in a way that even that team didn't have. Like that team, it was just like it had sheer talent on there.
Sure.
And like it didn't really make sense, but like it was just like forced its way to work. This one just feels like everything makes sense. I look at the roster. I'm like, yeah, this is a functional unit. This is really good. And like, obviously, we're talking about regular season here, whole different thing. But like, it just and they're going back on. I would also say this is, I think, the best vibes we've had going into the season that we've had since maybe like 2017, back when we thought Fultz was actually going to play.
True. I do think the vibes in 1920 were pretty good with like new coach, new GM.
They were good.
Veteran players.
It still felt a little shaky, a little like, this one, you just like, it's more comforting, I guess. Like, the vibes are good and it's like, you feel like, what you're going to get.
The guys seem like they really want to be around each other, which is an important, at least for now. And I think that they'll be able to build on that in the regular season because they're going to win a lot of games. Like, I think the NBA is too good now for them to win a ton of games, but like, I think they're going to win enough games to keep everyone happy. It's just going to come down to like, is everyone satisfied with their role? Does Tobias get mad at his role? Does Montrez get mad at his role? Like, are there role players who are willing to make sacrifices? Yeah, exactly.
Winning solves everything, and I think they're going to win a lot of games in the regular season, and so it's just going to help paper over. It could be one of those things that explodes then after the postseason if they flame out in the second round. But I think in the regular season, I think it's going to be pretty smooth sailing. Agreed. And just like the other thing, is this the first time Joel Embiid's had like three or more people on the team that he would be willing to call a friend?
Like human beings that he likes being around. I mean, he was actually hanging out with Harden and Tucker in LA during the offseason.
I've never seen him do that with another teammate, and if he did, then we traded him within 6 months.
Yeah,
like, if he ever had a
it's like Jimmy, Justin Anderson, JJ, like it was like all guys that were here very short.
Man, do you have to have a J in your name to be friends with Joel Embiid?
James Harden, Jimmy Butler, Justin Anderson, JJ Redick.
Is that like the code?
PJ Tucker?
Yeah.
Let's think about it.
Jairus Maxey.
He loved Jair Smith, the Spanish basketball player we had, Jair Smith.
Is that the code? Did we just crack this?
Yes. Okay, so what you're trying to say is if the Sixers flame out this year, we need to trade for LeBron James.
Yeah, no, perfect.
Done. LeBron,
Or
you
just
are a
everyone
Sixer.
Everyone just has to change their first name to start with a J, and then we'll post.
Jairus Jaxie. Hold on. Jobias Harris, go buy us some coffee. Jobias Industries. Someone said Jaleel Okafor.
Okay,
said,
well, there's always an exception that proves the rule.
I said someone as if Liam he's been the only person watching this entire time. We had a few people come in and out during this stream. If you want to watch this live, that's such a great pitch, I know. But if you want to watch these live, subscribe to the Patreon. If you want to get this episode early on your feed, subscribe to the Patreon. Later this week, I'll have a second episode. Subscribe to the Patreon. Subscribe to the Patreon. Subscribe to the Patreon. So, Matt, thanks again for coming on.
Change your name to start with a J.
That's what I'm saying. I'm Drill Bro Dude with Jat, and it was great being here. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on, dude. I appreciate you, and I will not recognize the union.
I will see you again in 6 months when you get desperate for another podcast co-host and someone cancels.
Exactly. Peace, bud.